there has been breaking news of sorts. Sean Zach from golf.com reporting that a new equity program is apparently about to be revealed to players. It came out in a series of videos from the PGA Tour with details of how it impacts each individual player coming out today. But the equity program has broadly been broken down. You can see there on your television screen, $930 million initially being invested into 4 tiers of players. The money will vest over 8 years, 50% after 4 years, and then 75% after 6 years, and then a full vesting after 8 years. It is based on multiple levels of performance. And I will try to get into some details of what we know. And again, credit to golf.com with the information that we're receiving so far. As to, just before I get into the details of this, I want to let you know that coming up in today's show, you guys are aware of the fact that we've been trying for the last few weeks to bring you prominent executives from the golf industry because of my personal philosophy that they represent a very important part of the industry. And I want you to hear directly from them. Agree, disagree, that's up to you, but at least it's an opportunity to hear from these leaders. And today we're going to be joined by, and I'm really excited about it, one that I think is completely distinctive by many measures himself, and that is Bob Parsons, who founded PXG. They are a partner with the Fairways of Life show, and it's for a couple of reasons. One is I like what they're doing. 2 is I like their equipment. And 3, I like Bob. He's an American hero. He's a Marine. He's a Purple Heart recipient from his time in Vietnam. And he's not only unique in terms of where he stands in the golf industry, he's one of the most unique people that I've ever met, full stop. So he wrote a book. I got it here. Fire in the Hole. So he's going to be coming on to talk to us mostly, I would presume, about his book, although I'm going to ask him about the business too, on how things are going on that side with their, Gen 6 product out and their new Black Ops driver, et cetera, because I have a feeling you guys would be interested in that, perhaps for your own games in the months that lie in store. So that is just around the corner. We'll get into the details of that. As to the details of this program, as best we can, let's try to break it down based upon the information that Sean shared in his article. So 193 eligible recipients. Group 1, 36 players. They're going to share the lion's share of $750 million. That's an average of just over $20 million per player for those of you doing the math. But again, you have to remember that category of these star players is going to be paying out different amounts of money. So how much the bottom of the 36 player pile receives versus the top, I think will be distinctive. Group 2 are being referred to as steady performers and up-and-comers. This is based on FedEx Cup points over the last 3 years, so we understand. And there is, again, $75 million spread out amongst those 64 players. Group 3, these are what I define them as field players, but they're upper field players. These are players that I would assume, there's 57 of them, and they're going to share $30 million. I would assume that they are all multiple-time winners. Some of them, I suspect, might be a little bit long in the tooth. And I would also suspect that salted into that group would be, for example, somebody that maybe won, the FedEx Cup. It might have been a few years ago, but they won the FedEx Cup, that they're in the mix. And we could start to speculate on who we think might fit in these different categories from players. Group 4 are past legends. There's $75 million set aside for 36 players, which, again, I'm going to be fascinated to see who those players are and how it breaks down. Again, to reiterate how we understand from the information that we have at this hour, Group 1 will be based upon this new definition, this category called career points, which means that they rated well in impact programs. Okay, that's a gray area to make sure that they get the stars. Right? I would say in that regard, to me that seems like a Ricky Fowler category, just as an example, right? even though he's one of players, and the players is going to be heavily weighted here. This is a PGA Tours program. You also have somebody that rated well in the impact programs, which means they connect with the audience, and this is about delivering the stars. This is about giving them motivation to say, stay with the PGA Tour, stay over time with the PGA Tour, let the money that you've got coming your way vest. And I'll explain that if you need me to, so that you're with them on a long-term basis and they know that they can deliver you to the sponsors and to the fans, etc. And then the last piece there in Group 1, of course, one important events. I just mentioned the players specifically. It could be majors. It could be invitationals. It could be signature events. It could be World Golf Championships, etc. And then Group 2, as I mentioned to you, is basically based upon what you have done. There's a consistency element there, but right now they're telling us FedEx Cup points over the last 3 years. Well, if that's the case, that's where you're going to get the look of kind of up-and-coming players because they don't have a large history that they're using. They're using a 3-year pool, and that 3-year pool should scoop up some players that are fairly new but have been playing well now, which I realize is going to raise the question of, well, what about a player that's on the threshold of breaking through and becoming a huge star? We all believe that there are great things in store for them, but they haven't done enough yet to qualify for these top tiers. How do you keep that player motivated? Well, according to Sean's article, there's a second wave of income coming in to those players, to grants, as they're calling it, not income, but grants, although they will have to pay taxes on these sums of money after they start to vest. Group 3, as I mentioned to you, I call them upper field players. It is based upon tournaments won, career money, number of times finishing in the top 25 in FedEx Cup. And then Group 4, again, the past legends. The caveat there on Group 4 is that the past legends must be alive. So, in other words, they're not paying money out to the estate of Arnold Palmer, as an example. The past legends have to be alive. And when you talk about those 36, I bet we could come up with a pretty good number of that category pretty quickly. But there's, I'm sure, a lot of people that are going to be sitting by their phone waiting to see if where they fall. Now, Sean's article did say that who gets into these respective groups and what they get paid respectively, that the tour intends to keep this information confidential. This is all coming from the fact that the Strategic Sports Group invested $1.5 billion into PGA Tour Enterprises. PGA Tour Enterprises is a for-profit entity. And my suspicion is that the way that this is going to work, first of all, again, I emphasize the fact that the money that the players are going to get, the grants, the equity, is vested, which means no matter what they tell you that you've got coming, you're not going to see any of it in your coffers until a minimum of 4 years. Well, in 4 years, given where the current status of the game is, the presumption is that we'll probably be on the other side of it 4 years from now. I'm not saying that's why they did this. I'm just giving you one guy's opinion. So 4 years from now, we'll probably have a much clearer picture of where everything is, right? And that's when the vesting starts, and it only starts at 50% at that time, and then 75% after 6 years, and then 100% after 8 years, to reiterate that again. So my sense is, from a business perspective, is that the Strategic Sports Group, with their investment in and the creation of PGA Tour Enterprises, a for-profit commercial entity, usually when capital comes in like this, I'm going to call it, say, venture capital, investment capital, they're coming in with the intention of growing value. They're coming in with the intention of saying, well, if we put a little money in and a fresh coat of paint here and there, we're going to get money back in excess of what we put in. And my guess is that is where the ultimate payout of these equity sums is going to come from. Right? Because people are looking at it as a $1.5 billion budget and say, well, you've got 900 and what was it, $60 million? 930, I beg your pardon? That's going to be paid out. And then they do the math between that and 1.5 billion and say, well, what's this extra amount? Well, yeah, there is that second wave. But my guess is that the plan from a business perspective is to say, we don't even think we're going to have to touch the equity there. Because as the business grows and actual real commercial value money comes into this new entity, that is how it gets paid out, because it doesn't even start to vest for 4 years. So they've got a running start of time to build all this. Bear in mind, the new television rights contracts will be from 2030 onward. So in a few years, when they start negotiating that, they're going to have a sense of that source of revenue, which is prominent, as you could imagine. So that's what we know right now. The significance of this, of course, is because I think it bears this kind of analysis and perspective, is when we look across the spectrum of sport in general, where are we seeing this kind of involvement from players in equity in teams or leagues? How unique is it, that which is starting to form right before our eyes? Right, we saw what Messi did with the MLS in Miami, which you're saying effectively had a massive impact on the league as well as the team, as well as him, to the tune of a minimum of $70 million, some estimated a year. Right? Another question that rolls through my head was, this equity program, would it have happened if June 6th didn't happen? Because after the announcement was made that the PGA Tour was in significant enough negotiations with PIF to hold press conferences and to make announcements, and a number of players, even to the likes of Rory McIlroy, where Rory McIlroy initially said he felt like the sacrificial lamb, quote unquote, right? There was a number of players behind the scenes. It was like, whoa. How did all this happen of this level of significance without us knowing and being a part of? And then this program comes out. Investment money comes from a completely different group of owners of a variety of different sports teams. And then a program comes out and says, okay, there's now an equity program in place for PGA Tour players. And clearly, at $750 million for 36 players, this equity program is a reflection of what we're seeing in the game at its highest levels, which is the thing that moves the needle, whether we like it or not, in their view, are star players. And right now, as money has been the thing that's been weaponized in the world of golf, this is an effort to say to players, your loyalty, as this whole program is being framed around, or your continuation to be a part of the PGA Tour, will be rewarded with these sums of money. And it appears, although we're waiting for the details accordingly, and they will emerge, as you know, that as a player starts to, right before our eyes, we've seen it a million times, we can see them ascend, start to play better, start to gain confidence, maybe start to fulfill on promise. And when that happens, they move into different categories as future programs, we know of at least one that's already in the queue, are in place to make sure that those players are adequately compensated for the level that they are at. Huge, huge news. And again, what this means into the world of sport, what this is going to mean for player organizations in other leagues, I think we're going to see a seismic shift in the world of sports and equity and ownership as we move forward in the coming years. Absolutely fascinating.